Alright, right away I want to say I'm going to try something a little different today. If I like the results of what I see here, I might do it again in the future. But while I discuss like whatever today's topic is, you'll see in a moment, I'm going to have footage of stages I've designed in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, along with the stage title and stage ID, so that you can, if you like the stage, you can download it, and if you like, give me a like within the Nintendo app or on Smash itself. Totally optional. I'm not really going to talk about the stages you'll see. I'm just going to show off 5 or 6 of them as I talk here. Uh, just as something entertaining to watch, because I thought I'd made some cool stages, and in the future, if I make enough stages, maybe I'll revisit them all and actually talk about each one in a more expansive video. But for now, as I show those, maybe I'll move my character to the side or the corner, and we can disappear. I don't know, who cares? Let's get to the topic. So recently, Nintendo had announced 2 new models for the Nintendo. Well, they haven't announced it. These are rumors that there's 2 more models of the Switch coming relatively soon. One's the supposed mini Switch, the more affordable version of the Switch. Maybe it's just one solid unit, smaller screen maybe. Who knows? Doesn't really interest me. That's for, probably more for kids, for the people that would be getting the 3DS, but clearly the 3DS is dying, so it makes sense to make another model of this system that is clearly meant to appeal to gamers of both on the TV or portable. Nintendo's not going to make a follow-up to the 3DS unless you consider the Switch itself the follow-up to the 3DS. At least that's how I see it. It just makes sense. With that in mind, I do want to talk about, well, not only what the other model of the Switch supposedly will be, but also what I think Nintendo's plan is for the future of the Switch, because I think it's gonna be different than what we're used to with gaming systems. They say they see a 10-year life for the system, and I'd argue that the Switch as a brand could live on even longer than that if they handle this in the way that I think they might. So let's get into it. This other Switch model, the Switch Pro, Switch 2, Switch U, New Switch, Switch Advance, Super Switch, who knows what they're gonna call it. I'm gonna call it the Switch Mark II, because I think Nintendo's gonna develop a model here, or at least they should, where the Switch can have a successor that's just a more powerful Switch, and that Switch can later have a successor that's a more powerful version of the same Switch. They could keep making more and more powerful Switches, because if you think about it, people buy phones every year or two at much higher prices. If Nintendo can kind of tap into that mindset that people have for their phones, for their gaming system, I think they could be onto something here, especially given the unique nature of the Switch, being the handheld that can just so easily be played on your TV. Such a great idea with such a great appeal that's never going to disappear, that it would be stupid for the idea of the Switch to ever just dissolve away. So, Switch's successor can have games made that are too powerful for it, that are therefore exclusive to that system, like the new 3DS. There were only a handful of these games, but they existed when necessary. Developers would know, you can make your game, any game for the Switch, but you should probably aim to make it playable on the initial Switch, because that's going to have a larger audience. But if you can't, you do have a better model of the Switch available, which, hopefully, if it catches on, would, be selling well enough where that's still a good option. Especially if they sell optionally just sell just the Switch without the dock and without Joy-Cons, because plenty of people that already own the base model aren't going to need a set of Joy-Cons, especially if they can slip in just like they can with the current version of the Switch. And if they have a dock, they don't need a dock. I'm proposing a different professional dock that could also be made, which I'll get to in a moment. But you could just sell the base system and save players a lot of money, because they wouldn't necessarily need everything that came with the initial version. But you could also obviously sell a version with Joy-Cons and a new dock too. That makes sense as well. And then another 3 or so years later, when more powerful games are coming out that even the Switch Mark II can't handle. They could release a more powerful Switch yet, a Switch Mark III, which again is just a more powerful version with some minimal updates in terms of what everything it can do, but it's still completely compatible with all the original Switch games and any Switch Mark II exclusive game before it, as well as future Switch Mark III exclusive games. See, I like to use the word Mark II or Mark III in this case because I don't want to give off the impression of like what the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 are. These are better models of the Switch, but developers shouldn't be aiming to just automatically putting their game on the latest version of the Switch if they don't have to. Imagine a sequel to Sonic Mania or Owlboy or Stardew Valley. These games can run just fine on the original Switch, so why a few years from now, when there's a more powerful version of the system, restrict those games from being playable on the original version of the Switch when plenty of people are still going to have that and play on that? To that end, you still want to make these new Switches appealing so you can still sell new units, make people that bought the original versions buy a newer version as well. And to that end, I came up with some other ideas beyond the extra power, and that's what I want to show here. First of all, Switch itself has a larger screen. It goes nearly edge to edge instead of leaving as big of a black border, still giving you space for the speakers there. And then I also think that they should include a capacitive stylus, somewhere that can just slide in and out of it like a DS or a 3DS. Games like Smash Ultimate and Super Mario Maker 2 are going to rely heavily on this from creators. Obviously you can create on the system, on the TV without touching, but it's going to be so much easier for you if you're going to use it on the screen. And at this point, these are big games that people are going to be playing a lot for a long time. So even if it is just these two games, it's something worth putting in the system if they can. I'm also suggesting that because I don't think you really need to increase the resolution of the game in portable mode from 720, I mean you could, but I don't think you really need to, that the extra power instead could optionally be used for turning on 3D like the 3DS saw. Totally glasses free, super stable. Games like Breath of the Wild already received an update for Labo VR, giving off stereoscopic 3D in that game. So clearly there's already some sort of version of Breath of the Wild in 3D. Why not just put it into a Switch that can output in 3D for gamers that want to play that way? I still love playing the 3DS with the 3D on. I think it's such a cool effect. And I don't want to see that disappear just because the 3DS is, essentially dead. A feature I'd like to see, but I'm not exactly dying for, is a mic built directly into the Switch. The DS had it, 3DS had it, the Wii U gamepad had it. It's silly not to have it, especially since games are now letting us use voice chat through the, microphone port. To that end, I'd also like to see a firmware update that affects not just the new Switch, but the original as well. I'm pretty sure it could happen. I don't see why it hasn't yet. But an update that enables Bluetooth audio devices to connect to it, including, headsets with a mic for games that can let you use mics with your headset. In addition to that, I think the new Switch Mark II could have professional Joy-Cons come out at the same time that have analog ZL and ZR triggers. I propose that because I have a suspicion that the rumors of Microsoft's Game Pass coming to the Switch, through streaming is true, and there's some games that would really benefit from having analog triggers, especially from old Xbox games and new ones alike. And then as well, the new Pro Joy-Cons could have a proper D-pad on the controller. Still offer the old classic Joy-Cons without these extra features, but then sell these new ones. It costs maybe $10 more or whatever. Because people want these features, and a proper D-pad would really go a long way for a lot of people. I know. But then, I think that's really all you have to do to the base system, beyond making it more powerful. Obviously, you don't need to make 3D, you don't have to put a stylus in, you don't have to do any of these things, but I think it'd make it so much cooler. It's already an awesome system, but it could be even cooler. And for me, those things would be awesome. And then I also made a mock-up for a new Pro dock, which I think could really benefit the system. See, the Switch would slide into it at an angle, so it could also act as just a stand for the Switch that you could use to charge your Switch at the same time as playing it in tabletop mode if you don't plug in the HDMI cable. And we see this with some of the third-party docks, and it works for the most part just fine. Obviously, some people had defective switches from that, but if anyone could fix it, make it work all the time without issue, Nintendo could. So I think Nintendo should do this. It looks cool having your Switch covered up when you put in the dock, but at the same time, it seems kind of silly, you know. At the end of the day, I think this would be pretty cool. And then building in some features that you can connect to your Switch that make it look messy would be really cool, like the GameCube controller adapter. There's plenty of people that play Smash this way and other games with GameCube controllers, so why not just build the ports right into the dock at this point? It'd be great. And then also, especially because of how popular Smash is right now, build in an Ethernet port for people to plug directly into their internet, because you know, lag sucks, and this really could go a long way in helping people. In addition to all that, I have 2 USB 3.0 ports. This is less than the one 3.0 port and the 2 regular USB ports that come in the base, the dock we get now, but considering the other USB functions that get built into my model of the Switch, I feel like this is a fair trade-off. The GameCube adapter alone takes up 2 ports, and then the Ethernet adapter is 1 port. So this really gives you 2 extra ports if you think about it that way. And at this point, there's likely little interest you have in using any other USB things, unless Nintendo adds, I don't know, more USB controllers, or lets us use hard drives connected directly to the dock, which I wouldn't be opposed to, but we don't really need that. Although they could build more storage directly into the system, maybe 128 gigabytes on the base model instead of 32. But 128, 32 is still alright. People can get by with that, especially as more and more bigger micro SD cards become more available. They just released the first 1 terabyte card, and 500 gigabytes are already decreasing in price, and 400 gigabyte cards are really affordable. So I think they're okay in the front of how much they're charging, or in terms of how much storage they have in the system and their choice of how you can put storage in it in the Switch. But again, I wouldn't be opposed to USB storage either, in addition to it. But beyond that, I mean, that's my proposition there. What do you think? I know I kind of rambled on there, but I think you get my idea of how I think they can handle the system as a whole moving forward, as a full brand. It could totally live on beyond 10 years, I think, if they handle it right. We could get more and more Switch models, kind of like, you know, there's not this extreme, but there's a new iPhone every year. We're on the iPhone 10, we had the 9 before it, the 8 before it. Not that extreme, but you know, every 3 or so years you get a Switch Mark 2, Switch Mark 3, you know, 12 years down the line we're at Switch Mark 4, something like that. Unless there's some huge breakthrough in the technology, which there certainly could be, I don't know what more Nintendo really has to do. They don't have to reinvent the wheel, not right now, but they certainly like to, so maybe a 10-year plan's all they really need. Regardless, you know, tell me what you think. If you like, if you don't like, you know, let me know. Leave a comment, subscribe. I hope you did enjoy. I'm going to try, like I say every time, to make videos more often, but I have a great idea for the next one, and I like this idea of showing Smash stages I built in the background while I talk. I hope you like those too. Let me know. Until next time, you all have a good one, and peace.